Hey, what's up guys? So time to go over some long-range test results here with the upcoming Uniden R9. Earlier this week, I headed back out to the Red Barn test course to test the R9 against the R8 and a number of other custom-installed detectors as well. Additionally, DC Fluid just posted a bunch of his test results testing the R9 against a bunch of popular windshield mount detectors. And down in the video description, I'm going to go ahead and link you guys to the testing, so you can check out the testing and discussion on the forums. I've posted my test results over on my website. And if you're interested in picking up an R9, it looks like the first batch of R9s are now en route here to the United States. And so down in the description, I'm also going to link you guys to Best Radar Detector's website, where you can sign up for his waiting list to get notified of when they're available for order. And so with that said, now that we testers have retail hardware and software for the R9s, let's go ahead and take a look at how the long distance sensitivity here compares with the R9 compared to some other popular detectors too. Now, when it comes to testing the R9, really the main thing that I'm wanting to confirm is just whether or not it actually performs on par with other high-end detectors as well. There's a lot of important things to look at when you're comparing these different things, and so I just wanted to make sure, of course, the range is good, and so assuming it meets that baseline, then we can get into taking a look at, the false alert filtering and the laser jamming performance and the different features and implementation and the display and the UI and like all of the other things that kind of separate these different detectors. But either way, I just wanted to make sure that the R9 performs well, and I was actually pleasantly surprised to see how well it performed in practice. And then as far as the installation, I've got all my custom install detectors mounted down low at the bottom of my grill. They all have nice clear line of sight, and I installed the R9 right down there alongside the other detectors. And for testing purposes, I just installed it there with some double stick tape and some zip ties, just to ensure that everything is nice and stable. The head does stick out a little bit in the front of my grill compared to the other detectors, which are kind of flush with my grill or just a little bit back. But despite these slight differences, I don't think that that's going to impact performance, especially because all the detectors have a nice clear line of sight up ahead. But either way, I think it is worth mentioning. And for more information about things like what firmware versions were used or what settings were loaded in the detector, all the detectors were pretty much configured the same. You can check out all that stuff over on my website. And now diving into the test results themselves, let's first start with 33.8. Now on this Ka frequency against the MPH-B3, pretty much all of the radar detectors alerted just after passing the Red Barn. And the results here were actually pretty comparable between all the different detectors. They all alerted within a couple hundred feet of each other, within a few seconds of one another. I did see one shorter range detection out of the Redenso RCM, but otherwise for the most part here, all the detectors are alerting very similarly. And personally, I was really happy to see this, considering 33.8 is the main Ka frequency that I see here around the Seattle area. And as for the R9 itself, displayed here in red, as you can see, it performs right in line here with all of the other high-end detectors too. Then moving on to 34.7 against the Stalker DSR-2X, the R9 again did really well here against this frequency too. The RCM did have two shorter range detections, but again, for the most part, the detectors all performed fairly comparably, within a couple hundred feet of one another. And then finally, moving on to 35.5, against this Decatur Genesis 2, I actually saw more separation between detectors here. The R8 and the R9 actually did better than, well, all of the other detectors. The NetRadar DSP, displayed in purple, did have one longer range detection, comparable to the Unidens, but otherwise, all the detectors actually took longer to alert. I had to get closer to the radar guns before they would go off. Now, this was kind of surprising. While I was testing, I was wondering, like, hey, did something happen to the radar gun? Did the antenna itself, like, roll off my dash or something, or was it pointing in a different direction? And so for that reason, I actually went back up to the radar card to go double check the antenna. The placement was fine. And then as a sanity check, I actually ran a fourth run with the R9, and again, it gave me a nice long-range detection, just like the other runs with the R9 and the R8 as well. And then finally, if we take a look at the overall averages against the three different Ka frequency ranges, as you can see with both the R8 and the R9, they consistently did well here against all three of the different radar guns. Most of the other detectors did well against 33.8 and 34.7, but I guess maybe the Unidens are particularly strong on 35.5. And so it seems like here with the R9, for example, we're seeing kind of more consistent performance across the board here against different frequency ranges. I know we can always split hairs between different runs and different detectors and whatnot, but as far as just the overall trends here, the R9 is definitely looking like a strong performer. And then next, moving on to DC Fluid's testing, he actually saw very similar results here testing with his R9. And again, for more information, I'm going to link to his full testing thread, and you can check that out for all of the detail in the discussion. And looking over his test data, starting first with 33.8, as you can see, the R9 up there in top displayed in gray performs really well. In fact, it performs pretty comparably to other detectors like the R8, R7, V1 Gen 2, and Redline 360C. It wasn't until he switched over to some other detectors like the Max 360 Mark II or the Cobra Dual Pro 360 that he started to see a noticeable drop in range. And then moving on to 34.7, it looks like his results here were pretty similar to what he got on 33.8. He did see a little bit of a drop with the R7 compared to like the R8 and R9, for example. But either way, again, focusing on the R9, like before, it's turning out good results. Then switching over to 35.5, again, all the high-end detectors did pretty well here. There was one shorter range detection on the R7, and then the Max 360 Mark II and the Dual Pro 360, those did have some shorter range detections. But otherwise, all of the top-end detectors here did very well. Then finally, taking a look at his K-band test results, this was pretty interesting. He started seeing some more separation here. As you can see, we've got the R9 that did really well, and same thing with the R8. The R7 did drop a little bit, but the Redline 360C, that actually did really well too. It wasn't until he switched over to some detectors like the V1 Gen 2, which did start to drop on K-band compared to KA, as well as, again, the Max 360 Mark II or the Dual Pro 360 to when he started seeing shorter detection ranges. But either way, taking a look back at the R9, even though it had TSF on, it still managed to turn in nice long-range detections. And so again, without kind of like nitpicking about individual runs and whatnot, the R9, kind of the overall trends that both he and I have been seeing is that it's a consistently strong performer against a variety of different bands, radar guns, and frequency ranges. And so against your standard continuous wave constant on police radar, it looks like the R9 is a very solid pick here. Again, there's many other things that we can take a look at: responsiveness, photo radar detection, laser jamming performance, specter immunity, etc. There's a lot of other stuff to consider too, but just when it comes to long-range detection, it looks like the R9 here is a solid choice. And as I finish getting my testing stuff done, my review ready, and all that kind of stuff, I'll definitely keep you guys posted as far as what we're seeing in testing with the R9. And if you guys would like to pick one up, again, down in the description, I'm going to have a link to where you can sign up for the waiting list so that you can pick up an R9 as well. And so with that said, thanks so much for hanging out and just watching this video and learning a little bit more about the R9 as we're all learning together. Hope you guys are doing great, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.